All right, everyone. Time to put on your student hats, because today we are diving deep into the fascinating world of digestion. We're going to break down exactly how your body turns all that yummy food into fuel, like a biology class.
It's like peeking behind the curtain of a super efficient machine.
Exactly. And our guidebook for this journey is this source called 10.3, The Chemical Digestion of Food.
It really goes deep into all the chemical processes involved.
So let's start with the basics. What is digestion?
Okay, well, digestion is basically the process of breaking down all those big food molecules into smaller, simpler ones that your body can actually absorb and use.
So it's like taking apart a huge Lego structure into its individual pieces.
Yes, exactly, like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does this breaking down process actually happen? What's the key player here?
Well, the real hero is a chemical reaction called hydrolysis. It might sound a little intimidating, but it literally means to loosen with water.
To loosen with water.
Yeah, essentially water molecules come in and break those bonds holding the big food molecules together.
So even if I'm, chewing on a super tough pretzel, it's water that's doing the hard work of breaking it down.
You got it. But here's the thing. Hydrolysis can happen on its own, but it'd take forever.
Oh, real.
To speed things up, our bodies use these incredible little helpers called enzymes.
Ah, enzymes. I remember those from biology class. But I could always use a refresher. What are they and what makes them so special?
Well, think of enzymes like super specialized workers on a microscopic assembly line. Each one has a very specific job, and they're amazingly efficient at breaking down certain types of molecules.
So they're like tiny little machines, each designed to work on a specific part.
Yes, precisely. And they're catalysts, which means they speed up chemical reactions without getting used up in the process.
That's pretty cool. So do we have different enzymes for different types of food we eat?
Absolutely. You have carbohydrases for carbohydrates, lipases for fats, and proteases for proteins.
Okay, so it's like a specialized team for each type of food.
Makes sense. Now, are there any factors that affect how well these enzymes work? Like, do they need specific conditions to perform their best? That's a great question. Enzymes are actually quite sensitive to their surroundings, especially the pH level, which is a measure of acidity or alkalinity.
Right, pH, I remember that.
For example, pepsin, an enzyme that breaks down proteins, loves the highly acidic environment of the stomach.
Ah, the stomach. That reminds me of heartburn, which is a pretty strong reminder of how acidic it can be.
Exactly. Pepsin works best at a pH of around 1 or 2. But other enzymes like amylase, which starts breaking down carbohydrates in your mouth, they prefer a more alkaline environment.
Oh, interesting. So if amylase prefers a higher pH, does that mean it basically shuts down once it reaches the stomach acid?
You're exactly right. Amylase gets deactivated in the stomach. That's why it's so important for our bodies to carefully regulate pH levels. Throughout the whole digestive process, each enzyme needs the right environment to do its job effectively.
Wow, so it's like this perfectly choreographed dance with each enzyme playing its part at the right time and in the right place. So now that we've got the basics of enzymes down, let's actually look at where all the action happens. Where does our digestive journey begin?
Well, let's start right at the beginning. Picture yourself taking a bite of a delicious, crusty breadstick.
Okay, I can do that.
Even before you swallow, digestion is already starting in your mouth.
Wait, really? In my mouth, I thought it all started in the stomach.
Well, your salivary glands release saliva, and that saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase. As you chew, that enzyme gets to work on breaking down the starch in the breadstick into smaller sugar molecules.
So chewing is actually really important for digestion. It's not just about making the food easier to swallow.
Absolutely. Chewing increases the surface area of the food, which allows the enzymes to access more of those starch molecules.
So it's like breaking a big boulder into smaller rocks, making it easier to manage.
Exactly.
Like that.
Okay, I get it. So once the food is all chewed up and mixed with saliva, it goes down the esophagus to the stomach, right?
Right. The esophagus is like this muscular tube that propels food towards the stomach using these rhythmic contractions called peristalsis.
Peristalsis, that sounds like a dance move. Haha, it kind of is. It's like a wave of muscle contractions gently pushing the food along.
Okay, I can picture that. So then the food reaches the stomach, that super acidic environment we talked about. What happens next?
The stomach is like a powerful churning chamber. It mixes the food with gastric juices that contain more enzymes.
Of course, more enzymes.
Pepsin, the one we talked about earlier, is the star here. It breaks down proteins in that highly acidic environment.
So protein digestion really gets going in the stomach. What about those carbohydrates that amylase started working on in the mouth?
Good question. Remember, amylase gets deactivated by the stomach acid. So carbohydrate digestion is paused for a bit.
Okay, got it. So we have this partially digested food churning away in the stomach thanks to pepsin and all that acid. What happens next? Where does it go from there?
Well, after the stomach does its initial work, the partially digested food, which we now call chyme, enters the small intestine, and this is where things get really interesting.
The small intestine, I've heard, it's where most of the nutrient absorption happens, but I've also heard it's incredibly long. Why is that?
You're right, the small intestine is where the magic of nutrient absorption happens. And its length is key. It's about 6 meters long, all coiled up in your abdomen.
6 meters. That's like longer than my car. How does all that fit inside us?
It's pretty amazing, right? That length is crucial because it provides a huge surface area for absorption.
So the longer the intestine, the more nutrients we can absorb.
Exactly. But the small intestine doesn't work alone. We also have a supporting cast of organs: the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder.
Okay, I know those organs are involved, but I'm always a little fuzzy on the specifics. Can we break down what each of these organs does to help with digestion?
Absolutely. Let's start with the liver. It's like the body's ultimate multitasker. It has over 500 functions.
500. That's incredible.
For digestion, one of its key roles is producing bile.
Bile. I vaguely remember that. What does it do again?
Bile is like a detergent. It helps break down fats into smaller droplets. So lipase, the fat-digesting enzyme, can do its job more efficiently.
So it makes those fats easier to digest. Makes sense. Where is bile stored?
That's where the gallbladder comes in. It's a small pouch that stores bile, releasing it into the small intestine when needed.
So it's like a little storage tank for bile, ready to go when those fatty foods arrive. What about the pancreas? Where does it fit into all of this?
The pancreas is another MVP in digestion. It releases an alkaline fluid that neutralizes the acidic chyme coming from the stomach.
Why is that neutralization important?
Remember how we talked about enzymes needing specific pH levels? Well, the enzymes in the small intestine prefer a more alkaline environment. So the pancreas acts like a buffer, making sure the pH is just right for optimal digestion.
So it's like a pH adjuster, creating the perfect conditions for those small intestine enzymes.
Exactly. And the pancreas also produces a whole bunch of enzymes of its own.
Like what?
Well, there's pancreatic amylase, which continues the breakdown of carbohydrates.
So amylase gets a second chance after being deactivated in the stomach.
Yes. And then there's pancreatic lipase, which works with the bile to break down those fats.
And I'm guessing the pancreas also produces proteases to break down proteins even further.
You got it. It's like a well-coordinated team effort, making sure all those complex food molecules get broken down into their simplest forms.
This is amazing, how all these different enzymes work together so seamlessly. But what happens next? Once these nutrients are all broken down into tiny pieces, where do they go? How do they actually get into our bodies?
That's where the circulatory system comes in. Our bloodstream acts like this massive network of highways transporting those absorbed nutrients to every cell in your body.
So it's like a delivery service, making sure every cell gets the fuel it needs.
Precisely. And those cells use those nutrients for energy growth repair. You name it.
It's incredible to think that something as simple as eating a meal triggers this whole chain reaction that nourishes every single cell in our body.
It really does show how interconnected and complex our bodies are. But we haven't talked about the last stop on our digestive journey, the large intestine.
Oh, right, the large intestine. What happens there? I know it doesn't produce enzymes, but it must have some important functions.
You're right. The large intestine is where water absorption happens, which is crucial for maintaining the body's fluid balance. It's also home to a diverse community of bacteria.
Wait, bacteria living inside of me.
Don't worry, most of them are good guys. They make up what we call the gut microbiome, and they play a huge role in breaking down any remaining undigested material and even producing some vitamins.
So even the bacteria in our gut are part of the digestive team. It's like a whole ecosystem living inside of us.
Exactly. And keeping that gut microbiome healthy is super important for our overall health.
This is mind-blowing. We've gone from hydrolysis and enzymes to touring the digestive organs, and now we're talking about the gut microbiome.
And throughout this whole process, our nervous system and hormones act like conductors, making sure everything runs smoothly.
So it's really remarkable how our bodies take all these different foods we eat and break them down into the nutrients we need to survive and thrive. But now knowing all this, what can we actually do to make sure this incredible system stays healthy?
That's the best part. We have more control over our digestive health than we might realize.
Okay, so we've covered like the first acts of our digestion story, the mouth, the esophagus, and the stomach. Now I want to get back to the supporting organs you mentioned, the liver, pancreas, and gallbladder. What else can you tell us about these digestive superheroes?
Well, the liver, as we said before, is like a master of multitasking. It does so much for the body. It's like a recycling center, a detox plant, and a storage facility all in one.
500 functions, right? It's mind-boggling.
It really is. Besides producing bile to help break down fats, it also processes those nutrients after they're absorbed from the small intestine.
So those tiny digested molecules, they don't go straight into the bloodstream. They visit the liver first.
Many of them do. The liver converts sugars into glycogen and stores it for later use.
So it's like a pantry for our energy needs.
Exactly, and it helps regulate our blood sugar levels. What about fats? How does the liver handle those?
I'm curious.
Fats are interesting. Remember those bile salts that emulsify fats? Well, after they do their job, they get reabsorbed and sent back to the liver.
To be recycled.
You got it. The body is amazingly efficient.
It really is. Speaking of efficiency, let's talk about the pancreas. What's its role?
The pancreas is vital. It neutralizes the acidic chyme from the stomach and produces a whole variety of enzymes.
We touched on that before, but can you tell us more about those pancreatic enzymes and what they do?
Sure. The pancreas has different enzymes for breaking down different types of molecules. For example, there's pancreatic amylase. It picks up where salivary amylase left off, continuing to break down carbohydrates.
Ah, so amylase gets a second chance.
Exactly. Then there's pancreatic lipase, which works with bile to break down those emulsified fats into fatty acids and glycerol.
Okay, and does the pancreas also produce proteases to break down proteins?
Yes. Pancreatic proteases continue the work of pepsin from the stomach. They break proteins into even smaller components. It's a real team effort.
Amazing. So these enzymes are working together, breaking food down into smaller and smaller pieces. But where do those tiny molecules go once they're broken down? How do they get into our bodies?
Well, that's where the circulatory system steps in. The bloodstream acts like a highway system, transporting those nutrients to every cell.
So it's a delivery service, making sure each cell gets its fuel.
That's a great way to put it. And the cells use those nutrients for energy growth, repair everything.
It's incredible to think that something as simple as eating starts this cascade of events that nourishes every single cell.
It really highlights how complex and interconnected our systems are.
It does. We've talked about the small intestine, but what about the last stop? The large intestine. What happens there?
Ah, yes, the large intestine. It's where water absorption takes place, which is key for our fluid balance. And it's also home to a community of bacteria.
Bacteria in our gut.
Yes, but don't worry, most of them are good. They're called the gut microbiome, and they help break down undigested material. And they even produce some vitamins that our bodies can use.
Wow, so even bacteria are part of the digestive team. That's fascinating.
It is. It's like a whole ecosystem in there.
Yeah.
And keeping that microbiome healthy is super important.
So we've gone from those tiny molecules to the organs, and now even the bacteria in our gut. It's amazing.
And remember, the nervous system and hormones are coordinating this whole process, making sure it all runs smoothly.
This is really incredible. It makes you appreciate how our bodies turn food into the nutrients we need. Knowing all this, is there anything we can do to keep our digestive system healthy?
Absolutely. There are definitely things we can do to support our digestive health.
Okay, so we've learned all about how digestion works, all those amazing organs, and even the bacteria in our gut. But now for the practical stuff. What can we actually do to keep our digestive systems happy and healthy?
That's a great question. And the good news is we have a lot more control over our digestive health than we might think.
I'm all ears. What are your top tips?
Well, first and foremost, it all starts with what we eat.
Makes sense.
A diet rich in fiber is absolutely key for keeping things moving smoothly through your digestive tract.
Fiber. I know it's important. But can you remind me why?
Sure, think of fiber like a natural scrubber for your intestines.
A scrub.
It adds bulk to your stool, which helps prevent constipation.
Ah, that makes sense.
Plus, it acts like a prebiotic, which means it feeds those beneficial bacteria in your gut that we talked about.
Right, the gut microbiome. So fiber is a win-win. It keeps things regular and supports a healthy gut.
Exactly. Now, what are some good sources of fiber we can include in our diets?
Yeah, give us some ideas.
You've got lots of delicious options. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, they're all packed with fiber. Aim for a variety of colors and textures on your plate to make sure you're getting a wide range of nutrients.
So eating the rainbow equals a happy gut. I love that.
Exactly. And here's another important tip. Chew your food thoroughly.
Really? Does that actually make a big difference?
It does. Chewing breaks down food into smaller pieces, which gives those digestive enzymes more surface area to work on.
Oh, I see.
Plus, chewing mixes the food with saliva, which has those carbohydrate-breaking enzymes.
So no more wolfing down my food, no matter how tempting.
Exactly. Take your time, savor each bite, and let your digestive system do its thing.
Okay, noted, chew thoroughly. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, besides diet, are there any other lifestyle factors that can affect our digestion?
Stress is a big one.
Stress.
When you're stressed, your body goes into that fight or flight mode, and that can actually slow down digestion.
Oh, yeah. I definitely notice my stomach gets upset when I'm anxious.
Exactly. So finding ways to manage stress, like exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, can really help your gut.
Great advice. So we've got diet, stress management. What else?
Hydration. Staying hydrated is super important. We talked about how crucial water is for hydrolysis, and it's also essential for keeping everything flowing smoothly in your digestive system.
Right. We need water for all those chemical reactions.
Exactly. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day.
I'm going to fill up my water bottle right after this.
Good idea. It's amazing how such a simple thing can make such a big difference.
It really is. So to recap, we've learned about the science behind digestion, all the amazing organs involved, and even practical tips for supporting our gut health through diet and lifestyle choices.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring the system that we often take for granted.
It really is. And to think that all these complex processes are happening inside of us right now as we speak.
It makes you appreciate the power and efficiency of the human body, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Well, I'm feeling a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more appreciative of my digestive system after this deep dive.
I hope so. And I hope you're inspired to keep learning more.
I definitely am. Thanks for joining us on this incredible digestive adventure. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into a new and exciting topic.